Hey guys, thanks for watching DataVids. It's Chris, and today I'm going to cover my top 10 free developer tools you can download on the internet or use online to help you. Doesn't matter what your programming language is. So let's get started. We'll go with my number 10 first, working up to my number 1. So stay tuned for the whole thing if you want to see it all, but I guarantee you'll probably want to use all these tools if you're not already, and they're free. I'm not sponsored by any of them at all. Let's get started.
First app I want to show you is tcpview. It's an oldie but a goodie, which is probably why it's my number 10 and not my number 1, as it is kind of old. I can't zoom in, so I apologize to you mobile users just for this application. I'll zoom in on the ones that I can. Um, but basically what you want to use this for is trying to find that process ID, or if you need to kill an application for those zombie processes, some things that are running that you just can't find anywhere, but you know what port they're on. So searching for either your local port, or maybe just looking by the protocol. You can sort by UDP, TCP, etc. So I've got running right now a website, and I know from my Visual Studio, because I'm a .NET developer in my case, that it's running 44313. I looked at it, and it's running on 44313, so I know. So I could actually come in here and see it. So this is maybe not the best use case. Maybe a more practical would be looking for those zombie processes, but sorting by local port, protocol, and process ID is mostly what I use it for. There's some other helpful information. You can right-click a process and do end process, or get some information on it. All right, that's number 10. All right, the next one, number 9, is Color Picker. Again, I can't zoom in on this one. I can zoom in on the background, but not on the tool. So apologies to the mobile users. So Color Picker, just Google it, Color Picker, and just like the last one, which I forgot to mention, you don't have to really install it. You just download it and use it. So make sure you scan those things for viruses. But Color Picker, what it is basically this tiny little tool that you could pick any color from your screen, and it'll give you the HTML colors, so you could then use it in web development or in front end, any front end really. So what you do is you open it up, and then there's these other choices, but really the useful one is to pick and hold. So click the big button that says pick color from screen, press and hold, and you hold down your cursor and you drag the mouse cursor to the part of the screen that has that color that you like. So let's say you wanted that bright yellow from the sunset. I'm going to hover over it and then release. And as you can see here, it has the # FDFA9C. You can use that as your HTML colors. It also has the RGB here, the four or the sorry 3 digits with the commas. So that's Color Picker. That's my number 9, and I'm sure if you're a front end developer, that might not be your number 9. It might be your number 5 or 4, right? Maybe even number 2. Not number 1. All right, number 8 is going to be Agent Ransack, and I bet that you're going to like number 7 better than number 8. I chose this to be my number 8 because I personally think it's the easiest context searching tool that I've used. I know Windows is good. This one just seems to work a little better for me. So what you do is, I'm sure, context searching is super simple concept. You're looking inside of files for a specific string. You can use regular expressions or strings. You can specify paths. You can decide whether or not to include subfolders. I just went right to the root of my D drive. I looked for the word dynamic, and I looked only at C# files. So I'm looking, it's showing me wherever in the code that I use the word dynamic, or whoever wrote that code. And then I can right click on it, and I can open file location, or explore here actually is the terminology here, or you can open it with a specific editor. So that's Agent Ransack. It's free. It's from Mythicsoft, I believe. All the tools that I'm listing here are free. Next up is Wireshark. Wireshark is for monitoring network traffic. So it's not just used by developers, it's used by security folks, hackers, all sorts of people. But it is helpful for developers too. Now, if you're just wanting to look at HTTP, HTTPS, web traffic, then I would say hold on, because one of my, here's kind of a sneak peek, one of my higher up number developer tools I'm going to talk about is Fiddler, which is better for that. But for anything else, jump right in here. As you can see, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, whatever. So I'm going to just double click Wi-Fi. It's going to start monitoring the Wi-Fi traffic on my computer. And so if I double click one of these items that's coming through, or right click it, sorry, there's all kinds of operations I can do on that specific request or response that was monitored coming across the network. But most importantly, I think what you're going to want to do is apply some filters, because Wireshark just gives you all kinds of data. There's just so much going on at any given time on your computer, especially as you can see on the bottom here. I have a few apps open. Every single app open that you have exponentially increases the amount of traffic going on. Um, and it's just listening to whatever it can reach out and get. So if you're running, depending on what device you're running Wireshark on, you're going to receive more or less traffic. Next app is beartail. So all you Linux users out there, you're already familiar with just tail. That's the whole app, just tail. Type in tail in the file name, and it starts showing you the app, starts showing you flat files as they change. Um, However, in my case, I'm in Windows, so I'm going to use beartail, which is a free application that will show you a flat file as it changes. So we're here in 2021 now, so there's not a whole lot of applications if you're working for a modern company that's writing to a flat file. But there's still log files out there, and as a developer, we're constantly looking at log files. So this will still be useful for you. So go ahead and open either a flat file that your app's writing to, or a log file that your app or some other app is writing to, maybe a database log file. And with beartail, I'm going to go and open that as I just did. And I'm going to switch over now to Visual Studio. I've got this little application that I wrote that just randomly picks an item. I got a list of strings, and it's going to randomly pick a string every half second. It's going to write it to that file. It's going to flush it out, since we haven't closed the stream reader yet, and then it'll make a little beep sound so we know it wrote it. So I hit F5 and start running that. Oh, that's really loud. Hold on. Let's let's take out the beep. All right, so let's hit F5 to start running that. And I'll go over to beartail. As you can see, every time it writes one of my strings, one of my randomly picked strings, it puts it on the screen. So you can watch the file as it grows, and you can turn on highlighting, which is really cool. So everything that has the string stored in it, let's give it a yellow background. As you can see, if you wanted to add another one, you could just pop back in here, hit add again first. That's where I always mess up. I don't hit add. You can change the color, and so like in this one, just looking at the screen, something that's got some more repetition, let's use the word give, and you can really color code out your log files like that. Kind of cool. Like if you want to put red for error, yellow for critical, that kind of thing. Okay. All right, so we've covered the first 5 items on the list. Now we're going to cover Chrome developer tools. I'm giving this my number 5, and let me show you why. So if you hit F12 while you're in the browser, you can see across the top you got these items here. You can stretch it out. You can take it off, kind of modify it to be, mobile or not mobile. In the Elements tab, if you hit this little button here, you can select pieces of the screen, and it'll take you right to that HTML. You could just double click anything and change that HTML. Like I could type in here, my class to add, some CSS class to it there. You can check and uncheck items to turn off certain pieces of the CSS in the code. And once again, I'm not a hacker, so I'm not going to be showing you how to hack things with this. I'm a developer, but as you can see how the items in the left is kind of changing as I turn off certain pieces of the CSS here. And wow, YouTube has a lot of CSS, so I'm not going to mess with that too much. But going into the console, you're going to see warnings and errors in your code here, and you can actually type stuff here. So, if you had console log statements, they might show up here. I could actually do a log. There's not much point in that, but, if you want to say hello, boom, hello shows up. But if you had log statements in your JavaScript, they'd show up here. Errors would show up here. If you have breakpoints in your code in JavaScript, you can debug them right here in the Chrome debugger tools. Now, if you're a Visual Studio user, you're going to want to turn off JavaScript debugging in Visual Studio and turn on the browser debugging tools. Go into your Tools menu in Visual Studio. And then within here, if you want these breakpoints to hit, you can either set the breakpoints in here by clicking like you would in a file, or just type debugger semicolon on the line. Network is a great tab. It's going to show you requests as they're going out and coming in without having to use a third-party tool like Wireshark or Fiddler. And you can see the request and responses there, as well as missing files, your 404s, stuff like that. I believe this is also the tab where you go to see cookies, things of that nature, and you can look at what's inside. Oh, here it is, cookies, and you can look at the contents of those cookies here. Pretty useful. Performance is fun. Okay, so you can hit the record button, do a bunch of things, load, see what pages are loading, and then hit stop and see how long it took, and break it down by method. And keep in mind, guys, all these developer tools. Chrome is one I'm kind of familiar with most recently, but you can do a lot of this stuff. You can do a lot of this stuff in the other browsers too. Hit F12 there. It's kind of similar. Firefox has one called Firebug. Internet Explorer even had one. Hopefully, you guys aren't using Internet Explorer. Number 4, we're going to do pencil. So a lot of times as developers, we're asked to rapid prototype things. Pencil is just one of those tools where you can draw things out, quickly put together a prototype. I am interested, though, to hear what other developers are using for prototyping. I've met some developers that just say it's easiest just to build it in HTML or build it with WinForms or something like that, the actual tool set that they're going to build the application in. But personally, I feel like that if you're going to put that much time into it, you're really skipping the that part of the design phase, that part of the rapid prototyping before you actually go in and try to build things. So it'd be nice if there is an intermediary tool, and for me, that tool is Pencil. So on the left here in Pencil, you can see, you pick the platform, and there's not a whole lot of choices for things, but I mean, there are some that you might find useful, and just put together the best fast mock-up that you can. You put your radio buttons, put together the fast mock-up that you can of the application you're trying to build. You print it out, you show it to the customer, and then you move on. Number 3, CodePen. I really love CodePen. So it's kind of one of those applications that you sign into using Facebook or one of your other single sign-on tools, and you can look at things you've built. You can look at things other people have built. I'm gonna go click create one here, and it's for web, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I could do, for example, paragraph. My name is Earl. Put some CSS on that. We could say for paragraphs, everything should have color red. And you can see it went red down here in the bottom. You can see red. JavaScript, you could put something pretty simple in here. Maybe a onload uh, alert, something like that. Little simple stuff. I'm still kind of learning CodePen. What's kind of cool to me though is even though I'm just learning CodePen, I can show other people CodePen using CodePen, right? I can show other people my front end that I'm building using CodePen. So I think it's pretty cool. It's got 3 tabs at the bottom: console, assets, shortcuts. I can include libraries here, just like you would in a regular web page that you're building. You can share out the links to other people to show them your work. All right, let's keep going. Here's my number 2, Fiddler. Now, this is a toss-up between number 2 and number 1 because I absolutely love Fiddler. But just going back to CodePen, or sorry, this is Pencil. Just going back to CodePen here, if I was to refresh this, reload, you'll see right there, CodePen IO and HTTP request was made. I could double click that. Now my screen is split between top and bottom. Top is always the request, bottom is always the response. Everything that goes over your wire, HTTP or HTTPS, you can look at it there, click on it on the left, shows up here on the right. And you can look at it in JSON, XML, just raw. Same thing with the response, JSON, XML, raw. This is probably not the best one here, but if it's really nice if you're doing like a web API request and you want to parse that JSON, you can see what you did wrong sometimes by looking in here. Or sometimes these are all good, but sometimes you'll see a 403 instead of a 200 over here, and you can see, or a 404, and you can see maybe what's wrong with your URL itself. And the URLs, I just go to raw for that up here on the top actually. So I mean, there's just all kinds of, well, actually, the URL is right here too. So over here, you'd see the contents. But I mean, this is just a fantastic tool. Cookies. And then what's really cool is a composer. You could build a request. If you just go to raw and just type it in, or you can go to parse and tell it the type of HTTP verb that you want and punch it in here. put the URL and choose HTTP2, whatever, fire it away with execute. All right, so the last tool I'm going to show you, my number 10, which is, I guess, mostly because I'm a back-end guy for the most part, is going to be the SQL comparison in Visual Studio. And I know it's an IDE. I'm not supposed to be talking about Visual Studio as a top 10 because that's not a little tool. It's a big tool. But it's just going to show you part of it. One tiny little piece of Visual Studio that not everybody knows about. So I'm going to consider it one of these special tools. Let's get started. You do tools, go down to SQL Server. I'm just going to show you this one feature of it, okay? Because it's a feature that's kind of not used a whole lot from my professional experience, but I just learned about it recently, and now I've added it to my tool list. So thank you to a guy at my work. But anyways, tools, SQL Server, new schema comparison, and you can compare the schema of two databases. And boy, this is a powerful tool. I mean, there could be drastic changes. You pick your source, you pick your target, and you hit go. Just real quick, let's go ahead and do it. So I've got here a sample ASP.NET identity database from a previous video I did. I'm going to right click it, go to tasks, and go to backup, and just hit OK. Successfully create a backup. Minimize that. We're going to create a new database. We'll just call it identity sample 2. OK. And then we're going to right click that, tasks, restore database, and we've got to pick the files, and I've got this one here that I just made a backup of, and just a couple options I just got to hit because I don't want it to throw an error. So we'll just say we can override everything, replace everything. There may be a better way of doing this. This video is really just showing you about the tool of comparing databases, not the backup and restore, but this does work for me. So now I want to make this one a little different from the other. They've got the same table structure, the same content. So if you wanted to do data comparison as well as schema comparison, you could. But I'm going to go into the ASP.NET roles table, and I'm going to alter this table. So I'm just going to go to design view, and let's say I wanted to add a last changed column, and we wanted to put that as a date time. And then I wanted to come down here to the properties of that table and give it a default value of, say, get UTC date, I believe. And just what I like to do to make sure I've got this right is take a look at the change script here, select all, copy, and just close that and create a new script, new query, and paste it here. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll make sure that it went purple to make sure I got it right. Because if it wasn't purple, then it didn't recognize it as a function. Hit F5. So we've added a column to that one. So now let's go ahead and compare these with our tool in Visual Studio. So going back to Tools, SQL Server, new schema comparison, and now we'll select our source, select source, and select connection. Now mine's running on localhost here. It's here because I already did this. That's the only reason it showed up. Otherwise, I'd have to type it in back on the previous screen. But it's there. Then you can do show connection properties and go down to database name. And there's your original one, the ASP.NET identity. Click connect and OK. On your target, you're going to want to choose select target, database, and I'm going to choose now this one here that says master, and go ahead and pick under database name identity sample 2, connect, hit OK. And now we can hit compare. This might take a couple minutes. It's going to show the results down here if it's succeeded or not. And then we're going to be able to generate a change script up here with this script tag. I'll go ahead and fast forward this for you guys. Oh, guess I don't have to. That was pretty quick. So as you can see, it found a change here. And if I go to this little script icon, generate script, going to generate it for me, put it in a new window. So at this point, you could execute the code by hitting execute over here, Control Shift E, or you could do what I do, which is do Control A, Control C. You're going to copy that over to your SSMS, go to the environment you want to target, new query, and just go ahead and paste it in there. So for example, if this was your production database, you're going to be running the code that you have, that you've modified in your testing environment. Now, one thing that you'll notice here, and this is another one of those things that my coworkers recently clued me in on, is that this is not it's not really a SQL script. That's why there's all these error-looking things over here. So go to Query and go to SQL Command, SQL Command mode, and now you can execute this. All the errors have gone away, and this additional syntax will work. And that's it. Just hit F5 here or execute. Well, if you're still here, thank you so much for getting through to the end of my video. Please leave some comments on your tools because I'm really interested. I love learning new tools for development. I feel like every new tool I put in my tool bag makes me a better developer, so I'd really appreciate it. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I'm Chris from DataVids. Hit that alarm bell down there, and I promise I'll continue making content for you. All right, take care.